This video is brought to you by HelloFresh, a very popular meal subscription service. We all know that cooking food at home is often time-consuming and tedious, with routine trips to the grocery store and trying to sort through different ingredients to make what you want, but ordering food out is also incredibly costly and at the same time not that good for you. HelloFresh makes cooking at home both accessible and affordable by delivering right to your doorstep, with dozens upon dozens of weekly options, including a rotating selection of items at the HelloFresh market. There are plenty of dishes to choose from each week, no matter the occasion. HelloFresh even offers vegetarian, pescatarian, and fit and wholesome meals to make it easier to stick with eating healthier. It is also, like I said, cheaper than both eating at a restaurant and shopping in a grocery store as a result of their pre-portioned ingredients, meaning you don't waste money on an excess amount of food. One of the meals I got was the beef tenderloin and shallot pan sauce, which tasted as good as the name suggested. It was fun, too. It's been a while since I made my own mashed potatoes, and yet here we are. To get in on the action, use my link or go to HelloFresh.com and use code POGJReviewsMay16 for up to 16 free meals plus 3 surprise gifts across 6 HelloFresh boxes plus free shipping. Thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Now having said that, let's get into the show. Well, it's been a hot minute, hasn't it? In September of 2021, I released my review of Sonic Generations, an excellent game through and through, one of the franchise's best. But you can watch the previous Sonic video for all the info on that. In the meantime, a lot of Sonic-related stuff has happened, such as Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Generations being playable at 60 frames per second on the Xbox Series consoles, or the release of the second Sonic the Hedgehog movie and announcements of more Paramount-related Sonic content, footage for Sonic's Netflix series, proper trailers for Sonic Origins and Sonic Frontiers, all coming after the disastrous war zone of a launch for Sonic Colors Ultimate in September. Thankfully, I never played that one and have no intentions of doing so. But the point is, the series has been busy in the time since we last met. A time frame where I was met with a sea of comments from people upset and wondering if the Sonic videos were cancelled and all this other nonsense, which clearly goes to show that they never even finished the Generations video they claimed to want a follow-up for. But we aren't here to talk about any of that exciting stuff. We're here to pick up directly from where we left off 8 months ago, by taking us back in time 11 years and talking about Sonic Generations on the Nintendo 3DS. I'm sure many were hoping the next Sonic video was going to be Sonic Lost World and not, the side game. But I say, good things come to those who wait. I want to get more spin-offs under my belt first. Now having said that, the Nintendo 3DS is a pretty popular handheld. It was first released back in 2011, and despite stumbling out of the gate at first, it picked up steam pretty quick and had a strong 6-year run before the Nintendo Switch dropped back in 2017. The 3DS sold almost 80 million units, which might be lower than the 150 million units its predecessor, the DS, sold, but achieving half the sales of a juggernaut like the DS and being a massive success in your own right is certainly nothing to scoff at, especially compared to how Nintendo's console division dropped the ball with the Wii U in 2012, compared to the money-printing original Wii. The 3DS is a pretty popular console, however, it's never really been my go-to. I have a lot of experience with my 3DS, having owned both the original model and the new 3DS XL model, and I got a ton of playtime with them as I'd gotten into great games in the console like its roster of Zelda games, for example, or replaying old favorites through its DS backwards compatibility. The Ace Attorney series is where I got the most playtime out of my 3DS back when I first got those games, but of course that's a story for another day. My point is just that the system is great, it just doesn't rank on my list of favorites like, well, every PlayStation console would. What can I say? I'm pretty damn biased. My point is also that I like to share my memories with the specific consoles I talk about in these Sonic videos, and the 3DS is no different. It had 4 completely original Sonic platformers, and before the year is up, I'm going to be talking about all of them. Starting with the release Sonic Generations got for it in 2011. Sonic Generations for the 3DS was developed by Dimps, the company who was responsible for making new Sonic platformers in the Game Boy Advance and the Nintendo DS when those were new. However, starting with Sonic Unleashed, Sega found a new use for Dimps. They had Dimps develop a Wii and PS2 version of Sonic Unleashed, based on what Sonic Team was making for the PS3 and Xbox 360 back in 2008. This was a clear success as Unleashed was able to reach every major console, and by doing a new game based on the same idea, they didn't have to worry about porting the massive HD version to the Wii, it's just a different game with the same name. So when Sonic Team did Sonic Colors for the Wii in 2010, Dimps was tasked with doing a port to the DS, and so when it was time for Sonic Generations, it was once again Dimps' job to take the idea, classic Sonic and modern Sonic traversing through levels of previous Sonic games and adapting it for the 3DS. Dimps has a pretty negative reputation amongst Sonic fans, and I honestly feel like that's not being very fair to them. If you watch my videos on their stuff, in fact I recommend watching my video on the Sonic Rush games before this if you haven't, that's where I cover Colors DS, You'd know that I don't think their output was perfect across the board, but many of these games are good, just with a lot of flaws. Sonic Colors in the DS is actually one of their best, a solid 2D platformer from start to finish that even some prefer over the Wii version of Sonic Colors. So naturally, you'd hope Generations 3DS could turn out just as good, however, it unfortunately did not. Where Generations 3DS went wrong as a game on its own, a version of the masterful console generations, a sequel to the DS Sonic Rush trilogy, and all that is what we're here to discuss today. So let's dive into it. One of the things people preferred about Sonic Colors in the DS was how it told the story. It was the same plot with Dr. Eggman's Interstellar Amusement Park, however Colors on DS did much more work to bring it to life by populating the park with other Sonic characters that you would interact with and do side quests for, even referencing previous games in those moments. In addition to that, the Chaos Emeralds played a part in the story by allowing Sonic to turn into Super Sonic at the end to battle the rogue Mother Wisp. If fans were hoping the story of Generations on 3DS would receive the same treatment, you'll be disappointed. The plot is still that classic Sonic is pulled into a void by a monster, as is modern Sonic at his birthday party, and the two Sonics and two Tailses have to go from level to level to bring back the world that is now a white void, and it's revealed that Eggman and his past self were behind it, just like the console game. But the thing is, the story of the console generations wasn't even that good. It was easily the worst part of an otherwise amazing game. Nothing happened for most of its runtime, and the dialogue felt really out of place and poorly written. The references were kept to an absolute minimum, and on 3DS, it's even worse. The production values here are pretty low. I mean, the mirror scene from the original game still takes place in a white background, and they put up a picture of the console cutscene to make sure you know what's going on. And they portray action through flashing colors and models moving across the screen. Sometimes it's genuinely difficult to tell what's going on here since it's more bare bones than what's on consoles. I only know because I've played the original game so many times. I feel like an easy remedy for cutscenes like this, or the Time Eater reveal, would be by compressing the original cutscenes. Colors on DS had compressed scenes from the Wii game, and Generations already made its opening, its ending, and the pre-final boss reveal cutscenes pre-rendered, so compress that and fit it on 3DS. I have no reason to think that was something beyond the 3DS's capabilities. The other characters don't even get the cameos they got in the console generations, it's just the Sonics and the Tailses standing around talking about running fast, like there's no tomorrow, or there won't be a tomorrow, and other junk. They also spam this one cutscene track from the original generations in almost every scene, including the Time Eater reveal. Seriously, making the console generations look like it has a cool story is an impressive feat. But hey, I completely forgave the console generations for its story because of the gameplay, the important part. So how does the 3DS version compare? Let's start with Classic Sonic, like we did in the last review. Credit where credit is due, this version of Classic Sonic is technically more accurate to the one on the Genesis than what was in the console version. I really don't know how that happened, considering that this is 1 year after the release of Sonic 4 Episode 1 from Dimps, which was one of the worst Classic Sonic approximations in series history. But in Generations 3DS, Classic Sonic gains speed when rolling down hills and all that good classic-y stuff people like. Although this slope in Casino Night felt pretty jank. When Sonic picked up speed in the Genesis, you really felt it, but here, it's happening, but looks like nothing is changing. You don't feel that increase in speed, but that's just my mind. Not really tangible. Overall, even if this is a better translation of the old mechanics, I would never say that a choice players have to make is more accuracy on 3DS or the better game on console, because I find what was in the console generations to be more fun anyway. On 3DS, you can't do the super-powered spin dash where you press one button and send Classic Sonic flying. Maybe it's OP, maybe it's not how it was in 16-bit, but I feel like that kind of crazy speed and power was just more fun. It was something that set Generations Classic Sonic gameplay apart from other 2D Sonic games, when here, you have a good recreation of what the old games played like, but it's ultimately dull because of the levels. And hey, what's up with this? I was told this game had physics, and this box is flying in mid-air? 0 out of 10. With this being a 2D platformer from start to finish, you may be wondering, how is modern Sonic different from classic? Well, Generations 3DS is basically the fourth Sonic Rush game. Colors on DS directly being the third one for those in the back. Modern Sonic plays similarly to how he did in Colors DS, in that he has the ability to stomp, slide, and wall jump, moves created for Sonic Unleashed that got brought into the Rush games with Colors DS. Although Modern Sonic has to unlock the stomp in this game when he had it by default in Colors DS. One of the main mechanics from the Rush series that stays intact with Modern Sonic here is that by filling your boost gauge, it will temporarily be unlimited as you blow through enemies before it starts to deplete. That's basically the only Rush mechanic that stays in Generations 3DS. The dual screen dynamic from the first three games is gone here. Instead, the action is locked to the top screen, as the bottom screen is where you see a line showing how close you are to the end of the stage. I know it sounds really bad to have two styles of 2D Sonic in one game, especially because modern Sonic's 2D segments in the other generations was easily the worst part of the game. But if they leaned into that Sonic Rush gameplay more, I think this could have been an interesting showcase on how much 2D Sonic had evolved over the years. I'm thinking the trick system totally should have come back for this game. In Colors DS, it made sense to remove the whole trick system because tricks refilled the boost gauge in the first two Rush games, and in Colors Wii, the whole point was that white wisps did it. So Colors DS had to include that mechanic. Generations 3DS does it like the console version where rings are the main method of boost gauge refilling. It hit me while playing how much more exciting a trick system would have been in segments like this where you go through these rings. Because trick combos, especially in Rush Adventure with the star system, added a lot of excitement to the moment-to-moment gameplay and made the whole thing feel more stylish. So it could have been a really cool dynamic where there's this traditional classic Sonic and then modern Sonic's doing flips and tricks to get more points through the stages while boosting through enemies. As it stands, you have a basic classic Sonic and a modern Sonic who blows through enemies faster and occasionally plays with the camera perspective more. It's just lame. Part of why I can't really discuss the playable characters that much is because the levels they run around in leave much to be desired. When you start the game, you might notice that some things feel pretty familiar. That's because for the first three levels, Green Hill, Casino Night, and Mushroom Hill, classic Sonic stages are lifted straight out of the Genesis originals, every aspect of them. It's a one-to-one transition instead of making new levels from the ground up, making these the best designed levels in the game because besides that, I thought the level design here was very weak. As soon as the classic era is over, classic Sonic unlocks the homing attack, something you'd get in the console version for collecting all the red rings in each stage. Here, it's a required mechanic. The lamest level design trope in all of 2D Sonic especially is a row of enemies that exist to be homing attack fodder. Sonic 4 was very guilty of this. I think they unlocked the homing attack for classic Sonic because that's the easiest way to design a stage, homing attack chains. And so, once they stopped reusing level maps from the original games and had no choice but to make new ones, the level design for classic Sonic went down the drain. For both characters, I thought the original stages were a mess. The upper routes were still the faster ones and all that, but then things would fly on screen faster than the speed of sound. You just have to expect that and react accordingly. But this was something that got on my nerves the more I played because the levels didn't feel cohesive. It just felt like some new chaotic element was being introduced every couple of seconds. Like this part of Mushroom Hill as modern Sonic where I went from boosting and now I'm bouncing and now I'm boosting and then I'm climbing on walls and then I'm boosting again and suddenly flying through the air. The stages all just feel like a complete mess in this game. This being something I felt throughout the entire adventure, minus the stages stolen from the original games. Even the roster of stages and bosses feel like a dartboard in this game. Like the console game, the 3DS version is divided into different eras, the Genesis era, the Dreamcast era, and the modern era, but this was once again a massive amount of missed potential, as the fans were told in pre-release that Generations was going to be used as an opportunity to pay homage to Sonic's handheld history, but in execution it barely does that. I mean, in the classic era, we get Green Hill from the 16-bit Sonic 1, Casino Night from the 16-bit Sonic 2, and Mushroom Hill from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. The rival battles against Metal Sonic from Sonic CD, and the bosses against the Big Arm mech from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Big Arm is a really cool choice for a boss, definitely worth it for the remix of the track alone. All the music in this game is great, except Radical Highway Act 2, that was an atrocity. And it's also really lame that Water Palace and Tropical Resort only get one remix. Act 1 just reuses the music from the original Colors and the Sonic Rush album, and then calls it a day. But as I was saying, in the Dreamcast era, we get Emerald Coast from Sonic Adventure, Radical Highway from Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow as a rival battle, and the Bio Lizard as a boss fight. The 3DS version only has 7 stages instead of 9, one for each Chaos Emerald as you play through these Sonic Heroes-inspired special stages that are some of the easiest in the franchise. You don't even have to do anything to unlock them besides beating both acts of the zone. But anyway, by pulling from games that were already on the console version of Generations, the stage roster of the 3DS version just feels like sloppy seconds compared to the main course of the console version. It's not that these are bad picks, but Chemical Plant, Speed Highway, and City Escape are just much better than what was on the 3DS. Radical Highway was literally a shadow stage in SA2, which just feels weird to bring back like this. But it's the modern era where the game starts to make good on its promises of using handheld levels, as we play Water Palace from Sonic Rush and Tropical Resort from the DS version of Sonic Colors. You can tell because it uses the Burst Wisp for classic Sonic, which was exclusive to the DS version, and when modern Sonic uses the Laser Wisp, it's the audio sample from the DS version. Laser! But then the bosses are another mess. It's Silver from Sonic 06 and the Egg Emperor from Sonic Heroes. So the modern era has 2 stages from DS games and a boss from Sonic Heroes and a boss from Sonic 06. Sonic Heroes, a game that was literally included in the Dreamcast era of the console version. So there goes cohesion. Really, all of this goes to show that Generations 3DS was nothing more than a cheap tie-in game with a very low budget. I can't imagine why they'd reuse whole stages from original games, reuse music whenever they can, have the rival battle just be glorified Sonic Rivals stages that have nothing to do with the characters in question, and have this Slapdash stage roster for any conceivable reason other than Sega just not giving Dimps the time and resources to really make something special here. Even with the kind of mediocre mechanics and stage layouts, a full tribute towards the history of the handheld Sonic games would have gone a long way towards giving this game more staying power. But I didn't want to stop there. The review is basically done now, but while conceiving this video, I thought it would be interesting to share what I thought would make for a cool Generations 3DS stage roster, but then I decided to allow my patrons to get in on the action via a Google form, as they discussed their picks in the Patreon-only Discord server. So the rest of the video will be dedicated to this little experiment between me and my patrons. If you want to share your thoughts, I say listen to the next few minutes of me talking and then take the Google form in the description below and share your rationale on why you picked the stages you did in the comments below. Now, I set up the poll as follows. It was being assumed that this new version of Generations 3DS went the full mile with 9 stages from 3 eras of handheld Sonic. So we started with the Game Gear. Voters had to choose one stage from the 8-bit Sonic 1, one stage from the 8-bit Sonic 2, and then between the other 3 platformers, Chaos, Triple Trouble, and Blast, they had to pick one from these 3 to be the 3rd stage. Personally, I picked Green Hill for Sonic 1. I thought that would be the way to tie the 2 versions together since Generations' promotional material was all clad in Green Hill imagery. But the 8-bit Sonic 1 has a lot of unique ideas that the voters resonated with, like 9 votes for the iconic Bridge Zone, and 6 votes for Jungle Zone, and even 2 votes for Sky Base Zone. But 9 people agreed with me in having Green Hill be the stage. The 8-bit Sonic 2 was a bit more divisive, as I picked Underground Zone simply because it's such a challenging opening stage for this 2D Sonic platformer, but the game had a lot of levels to choose from, Sky High Zone being pretty iconic with the hang glider mechanic, which is why it got 7 votes. 4 votes for Aqua Lake, 1 for Green Hills Zone, 4 for Gimmick Mountain, and 3 for Scrambled Egg Zone. For the 3rd stage, I put the levels of Sonic Blast in as a joke just to see if anyone would pick it, and the answer is no. No votes for a Blast stage. Over half the votes went to Sunset Park from Triple Trouble, probably for that Act 3 music. But then Robotnik Winter got some votes too, Sleeping Egg Zone from Sonic Chaos getting the most votes past that at 2 votes. I didn't include bosses here because I thought it would get complicated to have to vote on each and every handheld boss, but to toss my 2 cents in, I think Knack the Weasel will be a good rival battle for the Game Gear games. Not better than Metal Sonic, but since he's in the console version, I thought it would be good to have something different. And of course, for the boss fight, I had to pick the comedically difficult final boss from Sonic Chaos that drained all my continues in the first playthrough. Next up, patrons had to vote on the stages from the Game Boy Advance era. This one was simple as the only choices were from the Sonic Advance trilogy. From Sonic Advance 1, I had voted for Egg Rocket, a stage where you had to fight against the timer going down as you make your way up the facility, as it's just a really cool set piece and definitely the most standout stage of Sonic Advance, an otherwise pretty straightforward game. Although it was actually Secret Base Zone, the second level that stole most of the votes. It does have some catchy music, so I see it. I think any level besides Neo Green Hill is a good choice for Gen's 3DS. From Advance 2, it was no contest. Music Plant got 66.7% of the vote, which includes mine. Advance 2 is home to some pretty interesting themes, but Music Plant stands tall amongst them with its music-themed stage hazards and enemies. There'd be so much potential for a bringback of this stage. Still though, some voted for Ice Paradise, Hot Crater, Sky Canyon, and Techno Base. Advance 3 is an interesting game because all of its levels, besides Sunset Hill Zone, are home to interesting concepts. I voted for Chaos Angel since it's a really climactic stage, but Route 99, the opening of the game, had the most votes. But Cybertrack wasn't far behind. For this era's rival battle, I think Emerald from Sonic Battle is an easy choice, being an iconic part of the series and his story continuing into Sonic Advance 3. For the boss, it could be a lot of things, but the final Eggman mech of Advance 3 sticks in my mind in this case. Redoing the final battle against Gemerald from Advance 3 would also suffice. Lastly, we had the DS era. Sonic Rush was home to many interesting stages as well. My vote going to Water Palace, a great pick that Generations already had in its roster, which is where 63% of the vote went. Night Carnival and Leaf Storm being tied with Huge Crisis and Mirage Road being behind those two. Rush Adventure was all over the place with Haunted Ship taking an overwhelming majority of the votes, but second place was my vote for Pirates Island. I think that stage has so many great elements to pick from, like riding on a dolphin under the water or launching on catapults. It's a really cool stage. And lastly, there was Sonic Colors on the DS. This one is interesting because the Wii version of Colors got a stage in the console generations, so I avoided Planet Wisp, even it's one of the most iconic levels from Colors. Tropical Resort being the box art stage, and that's what it got in Generations 3DS. I feel like both of these stages have the issue where neither one is that climactic as a final stage, so assuming neither generations has a final stage, I decided to vote for Asteroid Coaster since that would be a challenging way for the game to go out, even being able to make use of DS version exclusives like the Skull Chase or the Void Wisp. And that is where most of the votes fell, with Starlight Carnival in second place. One patron had said they didn't want there to be a Colors DS stage, instead making room for a Sonic Rivals stage. And while those games are home to some neat gimmicks like Coliseum Highway or Death Yard Zone, I think the rival battles are enough of a homage to the game Sonic Rivals. And I wanted to make the stage list cohesive and divided by console, Game Gear, GBA, and DS. So there's that. For the bosses, I think it's pretty clear that Blaze would be the rival character, debuting in Sonic Rush, and for the boss, why not the Nega Wisp armor from Colors DS? This is assuming that the boss fight doesn't get reused in Lost World Enforces, of course. And that's that. The last several minutes don't really add anything important to the video, but I thought it would be neat to generate some conversation on my Discord regarding how Generation 3DS could have been improved. Like I said, the 3DS game with unremarkable level design and okay mechanics would have been a lot better if it used Game Gear and GBA stages alongside the DS ones it did use. The game would stand on its own 2 feet as a celebration of handheld Sonic. But as it stands, it really is just the cheaper, inferior generations for 3DS users. A game I'm probably not going to play again anytime soon because it just feels like a filler game made to satisfy a space on a release schedule, which sucks. Today, the only thing people ever really say about the 3DS version of Generations is that it has better physics for classic Sonic and a much better rendition of the final boss, the Time Eater, when it was abysmal in the console version. But since the 3DS version could have been so much more, you just wonder what could have been if it was given more time and budget. Could have been one of Dimps' best Sonic games, but as it stands, it's an entirely serviceable game that you play for 90 minutes as a distraction and then you're done with it. It has extra content for sure, but nothing I'd ever bother engaging with. I guess it was nice that you can fill in how long you've been a Sonic fan for on these cards. I'm pretty sure it's 2004 for me, which is a modest 7 years ago back when Generations came out, and now it's... yeah, that. But if you want to feel old, next weekend, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 turns 10 years old. So how about that? To celebrate the occasion, let's talk about that next week. Until then, don't forget to do the poll on how you could improve Generations 3DS and share your thoughts in the comments below. Other than that, I'll thank you all for watching and see you next time.